Emma lived alone in a quiet house nestled deep in the forests of Vermont, her only companion being her loyal dog, Max. Her days were simple. She worked at a small pet shop near her home, enjoyed long walks in nature, and spent her evenings curled up with a book or a good movie. Life was peaceful, predictable. She had always been independent, preferring the solitude of a remote home over the noise of city life. But everything changed when she began feeling strange. At first, it was subtle, just occasional fatigue, a bit of nausea in the mornings, and an unusual sensitivity to certain smells. She dismissed it as a minor illness or perhaps stress. But as days passed, the symptoms became more persistent. She felt an odd tightness in her stomach, an overwhelming sense of exhaustion that no amount of rest could fix. Then came the dizziness. One morning, as she was preparing breakfast, a sudden wave of lightheadedness struck her, forcing her to grip the counter to steady herself. That's when she knew something wasn't right. Concerned, Emma decided to visit the local clinic. She described her symptoms to the doctor, who suggested running a few basic tests. When the results came back, Emma could barely process what she was hearing. She was pregnant. The words echoed in her mind as she sat frozen in disbelief. That couldn't be possible. She hadn't been with anyone in months, almost a year in fact. She argued with the doctor, insisting there had to be a mistake, but the blood tests were undeniable. She was indeed expecting a child. Emma left the clinic in a daze, her mind racing with impossible scenarios. Had she been drugged? Was there something she had forgotten? Panic set in as she tried to recall any situation where she might have been vulnerable, but there was nothing. No encounters, no parties, no strange gaps in her memory. She had spent nearly all her time at work or at home with Max. Desperate for answers, she started researching online, looking up rare medical conditions that might explain what was happening. One possibility was cryptic pregnancy, a phenomenon where a woman doesn't realize she's pregnant for months, sometimes until labor. But that didn't explain her case. She was certain she hadn't conceived in the first place. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Emma decided to take drastic action. She installed hidden cameras in her bedroom and living room, hoping that the footage might provide some sort of explanation. If someone had been in her house, she needed to know. For several nights, she let the cameras run as she slept, anxiety keeping her awake long after midnight. During the day, she avoided her friends and colleagues, too overwhelmed to explain what she was going through. After 3 nights, she sat down to review the footage. Her hands trembled as she clicked through the recordings, fast-forwarding through hours of stillness. At first, everything seemed normal. She would climb into bed, Max would curl up at her feet, and the room remained undisturbed until morning. But as she reached the footage from the 3rd night, something caught her attention. There was movement. At around 3 a.m., Max got up from his usual spot and approached her. He sniffed her stomach, then started nudging it gently with his nose. A few minutes later, he began licking the area persistently, as if he was trying to wake her up. Emma watched in confusion. Max had never done this before. Why was he suddenly so fixated on her stomach? The behavior continued night after night. Every time she was asleep, Max would approach, sniff, nudge, and even paw at her abdomen as if he sensed something she couldn't. At first, Emma dismissed it as strange but meaningless behavior, but then she stumbled upon something fascinating. While searching online, she found multiple reports of dogs detecting pregnancy before their owners even knew. Their keen sense of smell allowed them to pick up on hormonal changes in the human body. Some dogs had even been known to alert their owners to cancer, diabetes, and other medical conditions. A chill ran down her spine. Had Max known all along? With this in mind, Emma revisited another crucial detail: her last doctor's visit from months ago. She had gone to the clinic for routine checkups and had mentioned irregular periods. A doctor had suggested hormonal therapy, and she had undergone some basic treatments to help regulate her cycle. But as she dug deeper into her medical records, she found something shocking. She had been unknowingly given a fertility treatment. During one of her visits, a procedure had been scheduled, a minor one, something she had signed off on without fully understanding its implications. It wasn't a full fertility treatment, just something to help with hormone regulation, but due to a medical oversight, her body had become primed for conception in a way she never anticipated. And apparently at some point, perhaps a single, forgotten encounter from months before, she had conceived without realizing it. Emma sat in stunned silence, staring at the screen in front of her. The mystery wasn't some elaborate crime or supernatural event. It had been a medical mistake, an error that had gone unnoticed until it was too late. Her emotions were a tangled mess of shock, frustration, and even guilt for not catching it sooner, but through it all, one thing stood out. Max had known. He had sensed the changes in her body before she did. Every night, he had tried to alert her in the only way he knew how. In the following weeks, Emma took legal action against the clinic, demanding an investigation into the mistake that had changed her life. She knew she couldn't undo what had happened, but she wanted accountability. Despite the overwhelming situation, she slowly came to terms with her reality. She wasn't prepared for this, and she had never planned for it, but she wasn't alone. Max remained by her side, her silent protector, the only one who had known the truth before anyone else. And in the strangest way, that gave her a small sense of comfort.